We the people. These three words encompass the very roots of our blessed country. Our founding fathers put aside their personal differences and spent the long summer of 1787 meticulously crafting a document that would establish a country where the people had the power to make their voices heard. However, during this same time, many people were criticizing the American experiment of giving the people this much power, stating that it would cause these things called factions. Now, what is a faction, you guys may be asking? Well, James Madison defines faction in Federalist 10 as a number of people, whether amounting to a majority or a minority of the whole, who are united and actuated by some common impulse of passion or of interest adverse to the rights of other citizens or to the permanent and aggregate interests of the community as a whole. My history teacher once dubbed it as the Constitution's greatest enemy. Now, when I first heard this in history class, I had the same reaction as you guys. The Constitution's greatest enemy? That sounds a little extreme, right? But imagine, a faction is an interest group with the intent of limiting another group of people. And this inherently threatens the entire American system, as the whole purpose of the revolution was to establish a government that represents all people, not just some people. If a faction can use democracy to get into power, then our system truly is no better than a tyranny or a monarchy. This moment sparked my interest into politics. It moved me to conduct research on factions. I could not comprehend the possibility of our founding fathers just leaving us with the Constitution's greatest enemy. But thankfully, I did not have to. Our founding fathers were in fact cognizant of this risk and molded the Constitution in such a way to prevent these factions from rising. For example, our founding fathers established our government under the principal ideology of federalism, where the overall federal government has power over the smaller state governments, and each state government has power over the local governments respectively. With this setup, it gives the people the power to suppress and limit factions to the local level, and not allow them to make its way up to the national government. Our founding fathers tried so hard to make sure that a bitter, partisan environment would not occur, and that adverse factions would not try to oppress one another. In fact, when George Washington gave his farewell address, he specifically advised our country to not form political parties and fall into this factionalism where groups of people are pitted against one another. However, even Washington was unable to stop factions, and just as he left power, the Federalists sent into the northeastern states were pitted against the southern, agricultural, Democratic Republicans. All of their hard work wasted. This was particularly evident during the buildup towards the Civil War, as well as post-war conflict. Our country built under the principal ideologies of freedom and unity got so corrupted by violent factions that we became in serious danger of collapse, as the southern states attempted to secede from the Union and form their own Confederate States of America. This Civil War embodied the dangers of factions, groups of people who are so unwilling to compromise with one another that they are willing to tear our country apart. And today, I feel like we are facing a similar problem. See, I'm extremely passionate about politics. For as long as I can remember, I have dreamed about a career based on improving the lives of the people I'd serve. So, to get a taste of this field, I interned at a local campaign running in a nonpartisan election. And while it was a great experience, I was shocked at the level of shallowness I faced. See, in the election, a white man was running against an Indian American man, and I chose to work for the white man. And this surprisingly bothered a lot of people. Some doors answered with anger and mistrust for a colored person like me trying to get involved in politics. His opponents tried to label him as someone who was un-American because he hired me to be on his campaign. On the other hand, his opponents on the other side tried to label him as a racist and a white supremacist just because his skin color was white. See, the two factions both wanted to win so badly that they resorted to dirty politics to try to divide us and completely left out the issues that mattered most to my community. And that right there truly made me question my faith in the political process of this country. Now, I am not advocating for getting rid of our political parties. I know that is a lost cause. But that does not mean that we have to allow them to become factions. You see, the key thing about factions that is so scary is that they are adverse to the rights of other citizens and have the intent to harm one another. If we allow our political parties to become like that, then yes, we are in huge trouble. But I firmly believe that political parties and a positive and united atmosphere can coexist as long as politicians make the effort to reach across the aisle. Now, you guys may be thinking, look, Ashwin, we are just ordinary citizens. Some of us cannot even vote yet. We cannot fix this. This sounds more like a government problem. But in the end, aren't our politicians just representatives of ourselves? This culture in Washington, isn't it just a rendition of the culture in our dinner tables? You see, they're only acting like this because we, the people, are acting like this in our daily lives. The change has to start with us, and only then will it trickle up to our policymakers. We need to first read the Constitution and appreciate the powers our founding fathers gave us. You know, a recent study conducted by Marquette University found that a staggering 57% of Americans have never read the Constitution. How in the world are we supposed to use our powers guaranteed to us by the Constitution if we do not even know what they are? But it's not enough to just learn. We must also act. Let's discuss politics with our local neighbors. Instead of dismissing the opinion of somebody we disagree with, let's hear them out and truly understand where they're coming from. Now, don't get me wrong, let's have our passionate opinions on issues. But at the same time, let's make sure to acknowledge that those on the other side are in fact well-intentioned, share our values, and want to see the same problems fixed. Let's finally understand that while we may be driving different cars, we all want to get to the same endpoint. Now, I know that this is not going to be easy. I currently run a club at Briar Woods High School called the Briar Woods Political Union. Our goal is to create an environment where our fellow classmates feel free to voice their political opinions and empowered to become civically engaged. And I will be the first to admit that sometimes discussions do get heated, and sometimes we are not able to find common ground. But whether we like it or not, we need to engage in those difficult conversations with one another. Our generation especially has to rise to this occasion. We are inheriting the world's major problems, things like climate change, gun violence, and the growing national debt. If we want to have any chance of fixing these problems, we cannot just run away to our echo chambers on social media whenever things become difficult. No, we need to be braver than that. We need to seek those who may disagree with us and embrace those arduous conversations. As cliche as it may sound, simple acts like these can truly stop our political parties from turning into those violent factions. It can reinvigorate that culture our founding fathers wanted for so long. A positive, passionate, and understanding political atmosphere. And so, my fellow Americans, my fellow teenagers, as John F. Kennedy once said, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. We have an election coming up. Let's go and make our voices heard. We, the people, have the power to defeat the Constitution's greatest enemy. So we, the people, must. Thank you.